We begin in South America, where Russian President Vladimir Putin has moved to reassure Venezuela as tensions continue to deepen around Caracas. In a phone call yesterday, Putin expressed solidarity with the Venezuelan people and reaffirmed Moscow's support for President Nicolas Maduro's government. Now, the Kremlin said both leaders committed to advancing their strategic partnership agreement, which covers trade, energy, finance, and humanitarian cooperation.
Today, I received a phone call in Russian. I had a long conversation with our elder brother, brave friend, the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin, who asked me to pass on a message to the people of Venezuela. Among many things, we spoke at length, and he said, "I want to express my admiration for the example of courage shown by the people of Venezuela in the circumstances they have had to face. And I want you to know that we give unwavering support to the Venezuelan process, to President Maduro, and to your efforts to defend your national sovereignty and the peace of the entire South American region."
The call was their closest direct contact since Maduro's visit to Russia back in May, and it came at a highly sensitive moment with the Venezuelan leader facing mounting external pressure and the opposition seeking fresh international backing. That pressure has mainly come from the United States, where President Donald Trump has escalated sanctions as well as military escalation. Washington recently seized the Guyana-flagged tanker Skipper off the Venezuelan coast, saying that the vessel was part of a sanctioned oil network. The White House said that the U.S. intends to keep the oil after the legal process.
And you have seen that he is delivering on that promise. With respect to the oil and what happened yesterday, the Department of Justice requested and was approved for a warrant to seize a vessel because it's a sanctioned shadow vessel known for carrying black market sanctioned oil to the IRGC, which you know is a sanctioned entity.
President Trump echoed that stance during an interview with Politico, warning that Maduro's days are numbered. The U.S. Treasury also targeted 3 nephews of Maduro's wife, along with 6 crude oil supertankers linked to Venezuela's state oil operations. And the moves have triggered fury in Caracas as Maduro called the tanker seizure criminal naval piracy and said his government would protect free trade of Venezuelan oil. His officials described the action as blatant theft and vowed to defend national sovereignty.
The crew of that ship, that vessel carrying 1,900,000 barrels of oil to international markets, paid for in Venezuela, because everyone who extracts oil pays for it first. They are kidnapped, they are missing, no one knows where they are. They kidnapped the crew, they stole the ship. They have ushered in a new era, the era of criminal naval piracy in the Caribbean. So Venezuela rejects in its entirety this act of criminal piracy against the entire Caribbean.
Now, in response to many of the actions by the Trump administration, some lawmakers are warning that President Trump is sleepwalking the U.S. into a war with Venezuela.
Their claims that this is about going after drugs or holding people accountable for drugs is just a bunch of nonsense. It's a cover story. And what happened with the ship is an example of how that's just a cover story. The real goal here is clearly regime change in Venezuela and accomplishing regime change by force.
And coloring it all is the reappearance of opposition leader Maria Corina Machado, who resurfaced in Norway. She called for Maduro to be deprived of financial resources and confirmed that her travel was in fact facilitated by the United States. Now, Machado has been in hiding since the disputed 2024 election, which independent analysis suggests Maduro lost by a wide margin to Edmundo Gonzalez. Even traditional allies such as Brazil and Colombia have refused to recognize Maduro's victory. Meanwhile, President Trump continues to expand sanctions and threatening actions against suspected narcotics routes from Venezuela. He insists prolonged conflict is not the goal, but senior U.S. officials say they will not allow sanctioned oil to move freely.
So it certainly seems like the U.S. is escalating the pressure on Maduro. But at the same time, we're seeing these reports that Trump and Maduro are talking behind the scenes. And this would be compatible with how this White House engages in these really high-stakes diplomatic talks.
With Washington tightening sanctions, Moscow extending support, and Caracas refusing to yield, the region is bracing for the next move, and it may hinge on what Putin, President Trump, and Maduro do next.
I was born into revolution. I inherited power like a crown. What I delivered was isolation. I built a personality cult that touched every home. Millions suffered hunger under my rule, but no one dared to speak. I ruled from palaces. My people queued for rice. I called myself the dear leader. History calls me something else, the dictator. Who am I?